Thank you, Nova. All right, so for our first panel, we are going to transition to what I was speaking about earlier, transparency first. First and foremost, this is a brand new technology. We're trying to get the rest of the world on board. I think I remember a clip about, about Bill Gates when he was explaining the internet on The Tonight Show, and people were laughing at him like, we would never use that email thing. And well, here we are in that same phase in blockchain, right? So transparency first, how centralized exchanges are building trust in the token economy. I'd like to welcome the speakers, Koh, the co-founder and co-CEO of BitMEX, Farzam, the CEO and co-founder of VALR, Stephan Lutz, the CEO of BitMEX, and David, the president of France Binance, moderated by Sheraz, managing partner of Storm Partners. So please give them a big round of applause and let's get this started.
All right, fantastic. Bringing the Avengers on stage with me here today.
Hello, hello.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to be talking a little bit about CEXs and trust, or was that centralized exchanges and trust? It's going to be a really cool one. Funny enough, we're actually in the track on Web3 and lifestyle, which I'll kind of talk a little bit about that to begin with. So maybe we can get a little bit of an intro from all of you. And because we're talking about Web3 and lifestyle, maybe you can give us a little bit of your 1 to 10 rating on kind of where we're at when it comes to mass adoption. Because if now Web3 has become a part of lifestyle, kind of where are we at on that track? And maybe a little one for the audience that might not know specifically about each one of your exchanges, what you see as your USP within what you guys are doing. So, Koh, maybe I'll let you start.
Wait, all of that?
All of that.
Wow. OK, so BitMEX is from Spain. We are the leading centralized exchange, regulated centralized exchange in Spain. And I see that we're at the, maybe from 0 to 10, we're probably around 6 in terms of adoption. But that's in terms of like execution. Because what's happening behind the scenes as we prepare for MiCA is a lot more than that. I think we're hitting around 8, 9 already. So things are cooking. We're just about to see that happen next year, I think. And our unique selling position as a company in Europe and in Latin America, I think, is our support from the banks. So we have 3 regulated banks, the largest ones in Spain, on our cap table, as well as a huge telco like Telefonica on my board. And that allows a lot of support operationally of moving money in and out of Latin America, the EU, and everywhere around the world. As you know, Spain is a big banking exporter. And so the likes of BBVA, Saka Bank, Telefonica, Unicaja Bank are all on our cap table. And they support us in a lot of the things that we do in using blockchain as a way to kind of change the way money moves.
Wonderful. Looking forward to speaking more about all those things. Farzam.
Farzam Ehsani, the co-founder and CEO of VALR.com. VALR is a global exchange headquartered in South Africa. So we're also the largest exchange by trading volume in South Africa and the African continent and going global at the moment. We started about 2018, so 6.5-ish years ago. Regarding adoption, and I'll come to the USPs in a moment, I think we're super, super early. You know, I would put it at a 1 or 2. I mean, our aspiration is that we're helping to build a financial system that will revolutionize finance. We're not yet even beginning to see the revolution in finance from the adoption and the transition from people in the traditional finance space into the crypto space. So there's a lot to be done. VALR is a spot exchange. We have spot margin. We have perpetuals that we just launched with actually the largest ever crypto pool available for trading competition, the VALR Grand Slam, up to $60 million a year. And really, where we excel is in the institutional space as well. We have about 700,000 retail customers, but we serve over 1,000 institutional customers. We've got, you know, one of the top APIs in the world, so a lot of the institutional customers will just plug into our system and also serve their customers as well. So I think for all of us, and I'm looking forward to talking about trust, there's a lot to be done in this space still to establish ourselves as trustworthy institutions to serve that mass adoption when it comes.
Wonderful. Stephan.
Yeah, hey. Sorry, Stephan, CEO of BitMEX. For the ones who don't know BitMEX, BitMEX is one of the oldest crypto derivatives exchanges out there, and actually trust was at the heart of the founding of BitMEX. When BitMEX was founded, it was on the rubbles of Mt. Gox. And basically the whole crypto derivatives infrastructure globally works on what has been designed by our founders, like the perpetual swap, dated futures, funding mechanisms, trustless margining and execution, insurance fund mechanisms, etc., etc. And that still is at the heart of what we do every day. We never so far, I mean, I knock on wood, never lost a coin for 10 years of operations. That's really like where we want to be. And I say compared to others, we're a real crypto native exchange. So we believe in the crypto mass adoption. But I agree with you, I think we're only at the forefront of this, seeing much more to come, which actually I find interesting is not so much changing just the financial aspect, which is at the heart. We are more an institutional grade platform. We are serving the needs of professional traders, individuals and institutions alike, not so much for the mass retail market. But what I like, for example, with Solana, is actually that crypto and Web3 really goes into consumer. For me, meme coins, you can trade them. It's really something for exchanges. I mean, we're sitting all here on stage. But frankly, this is more for me a retail consumer good than it is really financial market stuff. So, and probably we speak about that, and I'm happy to speak about trust in a trustless world in a way, because it's basically what we love.
Fantastic. Maybe Stephan, you said we're not really there. Are you more on kind of the Farzam side 1, 2, or Koh side 6? Like where are we at?
I'd say in terms of intellectual adoption, we're rather at a 6. So people understand what it is, people understand how it works, they know where to go to, but the majority of people haven't adopted yet. I mean, all the things we see, all the numbers we see, like how many people own crypto, I mean, huge numbers in a way. So you could say we're there already. It's even higher than people that own equity. But at the same time, it's on so small level that I wouldn't really call it an adoption. It's like trying, right? I mean, it's not the adoption in terms of people allocating like 20, 30% of their assets to that. Not at all.
Fantastic. Thank you. David.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, everyone, to be there this morning. I see brave people. I see people from the community, so thank you. I'm David Princay. I'm the president of Binance France. In terms of adoption, I would be very hard on ourselves. I would grade us at 3 to 4 because people doesn't have the reflex. So reflex below 5. And right now, it's not everyone that owns crypto without having the reflex, so 3 to 4. We are maybe going to go above 5 out of 10 when we are going to get a real MiCA license, a real framework where in 5 minutes you can go from 0 to 1. Yeah. Binance, in terms of unique selling point, I think if we have to choose one, it's our community. We have an army. Our community is our army. It's always better with a big community because you have a big liquidity pool. We are very retail oriented. It gives you a lot of advantage in terms of customer feedback. You just have to learn to really listen to your community, and you have the direction, you have the new product, you have the most critical priorities that you have to assess. So that's it.
Fantastic. Awesome. Great. Now that we have the sales pitches that are over, we can get into the core of the subject here. So we're averaging a 4 out of 10. As per what David said, maybe we get over 5 when some of the regulation comes forward. So maybe we touch that topic first. Geopolitics and regulation. Maybe we touch kind of, let's say, the Western side, the US first. Like over half of the population in the world is going into elections. Maybe, Stephan, you spoke about how the US election might have a big kind of impact on this rating that you just gave. Do you want to touch a little bit upon that before we start?
Sure. This is more market speaking for me. So just as a caveat, we are not serving any US customers as an exchange. But that just to make it clear, but we'll look at what happens in the world because crypto and Web3 is a global market. And we really believe that based on the macro developments, we had rate cuts already for the ECB now, we believe we will see rate cuts in the US as well, and with the elections that are actually going on all over the world. I mean, it's not just the US. We see more and more people becoming cognizant of some of the derailers of the classical financial system, and they think more and more into getting used to and developing this reflex, I would say, to say, is there an alternative? I don't believe in a complete crowding out of that. It's more like a coexistence of two systems. But the more you go south, the more you go east, I would say, the more inclined people are to use crypto and Web3 in day-to-day business, whereas for the European and the US populations, it's more kind of an investment asset for me. It's more like adding to it like equities, like bonds, commodities, what have you, alternative investments. So it's slightly different for me in terms of use case. For Global South, Global East, it's more real use case on day-to-day level, and you will have more and more, and it becomes, as I said, with meme coins as well, more a consumer asset, which is great. Actually, I love to see this. For the European folks and the US folks, it's more as an alternative investment asset and kind of a protection. That's what we see and what all the elections are actually spurring from my point of view.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And I mean, here, David, you know, there's the recent acquisition of Bitstamp by Robinhood. You had quite an opinion about where Europe is headed, or maybe what's been happening over the past year. Maybe you can give us the perspective around kind of Europe's kind of regulation at the moment. You mentioned that MiCA could sway us over that 5 in terms of adoption. I mean, give us your perspective now about how we are in Europe.
Yeah, so Europe was the shiny star of last year, and it was on the top of the podium last year. This year, everybody asks themselves where the fuck Europe is in the geography and in the geopolitics of it. So we saw first a very big move forward blockchain by US this year, unexpected, very fast, very violent. BTC was an uncertainty, ETH was a total surprise. Like it caught us, I think, all by surprise in a 1 month time frame. And now we're looking at also as a different zone. So Southeast Asia has always been one of the most dynamic zones of blockchain. LATAM creates a lot of use case because of their economical situation that is complicated. And Europe is structurizing with MiCA, with a set of regulation. And it's interesting to see that also it's an adoption, it's an approach that's become unique, where America is going from the ETF, Southeast Asia is copying the ETF issuance. Europe right now is regulating the space without an emission of ETF. So that's very interesting to see this one-sided strategy. I think the challenge for Europe this year is going to be the implementation of MiCA, and it's begin end of June, but also the creation of a multiple strategy framework. It would be very dangerous for Europe to just regulate without the issuance of ETF or assets that are comparable to this.
Fantastic. And Koh, would you like to jump on that in any way as your
it goes back to your first question on defining. I think it'd be more fair if you define what crypto adoption means, right? So if you look at more developed nations, and obviously it's what they were saying, it's an investment digital asset, whereas where we have exposure in Latin America and Europe, we see two different dynamics and uses of crypto. One by necessity, to on-ramp and operate with stable coins in Latin America, and then off-ramp and then move money across the world. And then in Europe, where it's more like exposure on certain assets. And obviously with Southeast Asia being super dynamic, then we get a lot of inflow from some users who just have different use. And I think having MiCA create that framework is really a before and after, which is why I was saying we're probably, you know, what's cooking is actually more than a 5, but then in 2025 will be very, very different.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. And we talk about what's cooking. I mean, Farzam, you gave an interesting example when we were in our prep call around the red flag laws. And I'd never heard of someone kind of relate the kind of crypto industry to kind of the automotive industry back in the early days. Do you want to give some thoughts around some of those topics?
Sure. So for those of you that have never heard about the red flag laws, these were laws that were created in the automotive industry really at the onset of horseless carriages, right? And the idea here is that the regulators thought, goodness, we've always known that there's been a horse in front of a carriage, and now this is becoming automated. This must be very dangerous. So let's create a red flag law, which basically means that in front of the automated carriage, there has to be an individual standing and walking in front of it with a red flag, warning everyone that this automobile is coming behind it, obviously defeating the entire purpose of the automobile. And I think, obviously, since then, we've moved on. We've got highways, we've got autobahns, etc. But you can understand the fear of the regulators at that time of the unknown, not knowing exactly what would happen. There was no infrastructure, no big roads to accommodate the speed of cars, etc. And I think we've seen over the last few years kind of similar things within the crypto space where regulators may not really understand what the risks are and to kind of put red flag laws up there. And I think we're going to see more of that. And my view actually is that over the next few years, we will see much more resistance to the crypto space before we see adoption. Because I don't think there really is a threat that is perceived by traditional finance in a big way, because it's still the dominant financial system. But when that starts changing, and it will, we should expect some obstacles and some hindrances from traditional finance. So that's what I expect, and it's, I think, par for the course. This is going to be the natural evolution of what crypto promises, and it's really the natural evolution of a lot of the technologies that have had tremendous promise for the transformation of humanity.
I would love to jump onto that, because we talk about how do we inject trust in the token economy. And the funny thing is that the whole discussion for me has turned upside down. I agree that good regulation will probably help spurring adoption, but not for the sake of the regulation. No disrespect to regulators. In my previous career, I have worked with them. They usually have good intentions, and we should just recognize that for the moment, as you say, and appreciate where they are. But frankly, the regulation as such is not more than just a label that you put on something. Because the crypto space, in particular Bitcoin in the beginning, actually was designed to mitigate some of the deficiencies of the financial system. So it's inherent, and the thing why we speak about trust in the industry is actually because people don't understand the technology. If you say, how can you, as a centralized exchange, inject trust? It's on various levels, and we see that here on stage. So for example, for BitMEX, we have a very nice and bespoke business case. It is derivatives trading for more, for individuals as well, but more professional people who know blockchain technology, who know how it works, and who know their trade in terms of trading. That is really our sweet spot. We have other clients as well, but this is our sweet spot. So for those, they know. They look at, is there proof of reserves and proof of liabilities? What is the coverage or the cover of that? Is it like above 80%? Is it below 80%? They look at, can we actually see what's going on chain? So they use their own blockchain explorers to see what's happening on the exchange. They look at our very transparent documentation and monitor on a day-to-day basis whether we are true to what we say that happens on the platform. They look at, do we trade against our own customers, yes or no, and we don't. This is like how the industry evolves. It's more an evolutionary stage. We don't have our own trading desk, and so on and so on. So the people who know that know exactly what to look for. And they say, hey, this is one of the most trusted exchanges out there. That doesn't mean that there aren't issues. That's not what I want to say, but they know how to look at that. If I would ask my mother, do you know what to look at if you want to search for a trusted exchange? Frankly, the answer is no, because she's not a blockchain expert, she's not in the industry, and she's, let's say, not a crypto-native person. And I guess here, what you do actually, and what you say with the community aspect, and just being there, or for you, when you say, hey, it's actually for the on and off ramp, which is a completely different use case than for our customers, right? This is where it becomes fuzzy, and where then regulation is like, here's a rubber stamp. They seem to be legit, right? Where you can, if you're a crypto native, address legitimacy quite on your own, which I find interesting. And this is this red flag thing. People that know how automobiles work, they would have found the red flag laws already at that time like hilarious, right? Because as you say, it's contradictory to the point of it. But we need to go through the stages, I think, just to come to then the mass adoption. Yeah.
Unfortunately, Satoshi created the technology, but not the regulation. And also, regulator ticks the box under their perimeter and not ours.
Yeah.
Meaning that blockchain people created a tool that normally tick all the box, but it has to pass the audit test of the authority and the regulator. And for now, the knowledge of the regulator, when a regulation comes to place, it's theories that meet practice. So first, it's not going to happen well for everybody, meaning that regulation the first year is always very complicated for everyone, regulator and actors, and could create some damage. But at the end of the day, it's the final result that counts for everyone.
Yeah, see, no, thank you. And I mean, look, we have had the ETFs being quite like in the news. We have structured products. I mean, Koh, you were mentioning you have some pretty large caps, banks, kind of that are on your cap table, right? I mean, so do you feel like having those people on board, working with them, has kind of helped you now kind of approach some of that mass adoption?
A lot, yeah. I mean, the banks themselves help lobby with the regulators. Now that they have the know-how, we collaborate with them to see what to spot, what to not. And it helps the regulators also kind of advance with what they need to do, right? There's some legacy regulation from the red flags that are still there. And then because of the absence of regulation. But now with regulation and the banks getting into our playground, the truth is how CEXs are building trust in the token economy. We have a responsibility as stewards of Web3 to be collaborative with each other and with the financial institutions. We're not going to replace one or the other. Banks are still a place where mass people trust. And it's our responsibility, I think, to be working with them so we can then extend that trust through them. And that's what we're doing with the banks in Latin America and in Europe.
Fantastic, thank you. And moving on to another topic where trust is conveyed in the digital economy a lot through stablecoins. It's a topic that we haven't really touched upon yet in the panel. And Farzam, if I kind of quote you here, you said kind of the stablecoins of today are the unstable coins of tomorrow. Do you want to kind of kick us off on that topic?
Yeah, I mean, if you zoom out, and what are stablecoins right now? Stablecoins are something that's tethered to a fiat currency, the US dollar or any other fiat currency. If you look at the history of fiat currencies and you look at the history of finance, those assets have been inflated out of existence. And we're seeing the same thing, across the world with the amount of, M1 or central bank balance sheets in the world. And so I think right now, one of the reasons I'm so bullish about Bitcoin is that I think that the next world reserve currency is going to be based upon cryptography. It's not going to be a currency that is identified with a particular nation state. It will be a reserve currency for the world. Now, if you take that perspective, what will precipitate the change between our current system and a new system in which we have a global currency for humanity, not a global currency, a reserve currency that sets the interests of that nation above the other nations? Because let's make no mistake about it, the United States has been a huge beneficiary of the fact that they have the reserve currency over the past 50, 60, 70 years. And if you do take that view, that history will continue, and that fiat currencies are not forever, then that implies that there will be tremendous volatility and the destruction of many of those fiat currencies, and by consequence, anything that's tethered to that volatile asset will be volatile itself, right? So I think we're in for quite a show in the next few years and couple of decades. And I want to say a few things about trust, but I'll let other participants say so, and then I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment.
I love that train of thought, because it very much resonates with how we as an organization operate. Stable coins are in a way here to build trust, but for me, not like the ultimate trust, as you say. It's just the trust that you can transfer and transform between fiat and crypto, right? Stablecoins are, from my point of view, not so much about being a real asset. They enable capital-efficient movement of funds, and capital efficient in the true sense of the meaning, and then secondly, in the understanding, let's say, way of the meaning. What do I mean? If you're used to transact in US dollar, it's easier for you to relate to the concept of a stablecoin because it's pegged to the US dollar. If you would need now to value everything in Bitcoin or in any other coin, it is mentally stressful for you. Those two together, this is why stablecoins are so successful for the right reasons, as long as, and that's the second thing, they are permissionless and they are freely transferable. The moment this vanishes, it becomes really a problem, and they basically will depeg immediately.
Yeah.
So I think I'm with you here. I can't predict the future, unfortunately. That would be massive for me to earn money. But I'm really looking forward to that show unfolding over the next couple of years.
I just want to add, I think you're right, especially with our users, for example, in Latin America. They don't see it as a USD peg token. They just see, this is my way of getting out of a volatile thing. Because if what you say happens, if or when, we have bigger problems.
Wonderful. And I mean, look, if we're looking at building trust further, and David, this one for you, funds are seifu. We talk about proof of reserves. At least we spoke about proof of reserves way back when. Now it doesn't seem to be really kind of a topic. Or maybe it is. You can let me know, or let the audience know. Are there any other kind of tools that Binance are using now to kind of build trust within that community, as community is so important to you?
Alors, proof of reserve, the subject has been passed over. We demonstrate our proof of reserve. We are not that older as BitMEX, but almost, but you're older. But you know, it's also the history of an exchange that you can backtrace. A new exchange that has 6 months old, you don't know.
Yeah.
7 years of practice, several bear market. I mean, crisis in Binance, it's a Monday. You can trust an exchange by its past action and its past reaction. It doesn't augur about the future. You always have to do your due diligence, but it says a lot. That's the first thing. And the second one right now, our main focus this quarter and this semester is that with the rise of the activity of everyone, user, institution, retail, etc., comes a real question of security. Securities that could be on the account, securities that could be on the individual that doesn't know sometimes what they do, security inside the exchange, but security also outside the exchange, the wallet, the security of the wallet of the user. There's been a lot of new tech that has been developed those last 4 years, and people need to catch up, need to update. As well, we have a wave of new users that enter, and we see different behavior compared to 4 years ago. 4 years ago, we were a little bit together. We were like, let's say, inside the exchange of Binance, 60, 80 million. A lot of people had trading habits. They invest into one coin. Once it's up, they sell 50% in order to reinvest at a low period. Now, we have people that are more immobile, that are more, stick to their coin until the 10x. So we need to learn them more about financial knowledge. At the same time, than security, technology practice, because there's going to be some incident inside the bull market. We need to limit those incidents that's going to occur to protect the user. It's not only the funds that are safe, it's the users that we need to protect.
That's very, very, very well said. And I think we don't necessarily talk so much about how education in the space needs to evolve, right? We just say education, education, but how actually that needs to change with the times. I think it's a very good point. Farzam, you mentioned other elements of trust that you wanted to speak about. Do you want to talk about those?
Yeah, I think it's really important as well. I think the industry is moving towards proof of reserves. That will probably be required from most regulators around the world. But I think it's really important for people to realize that proof of reserves actually doesn't prove anything. Like, literally does not prove anything.
Don't say that.
No, it has to be.
David.
And I'm glad I've got some opposition here, and I'll explain why. You know, with the proof of reserves, and the nice thing about the crypto space is you've got your blockchain assets on chain. And you also have your ledger that you keep that's private to your organization or exchange, where you know what effectively your liabilities are to your customers. That is not a public ledger, right? And so you can do proof of reserves, and you can use Merkle trees, and I would probably say that you know, BitMEX has one of the best that I've seen. But even BitMEX in its own documentation acknowledges that there are shortcomings, right? And the point is that for some of these proof of reserves, to actually verify using Merkle trees, et cetera, you need quite sophisticated software. So I would say about 99.9% of the population has no idea actually what proof of reserve is, let alone actually testing it out. And you have to make sure that the people that are doing it are not actually, they don't, first of all, have things like Peterson commitments when you have to make sure there are non-zero account balances, et cetera. Most people don't have no idea what that is. So my point is this. If you have an exchange operator that wants to lie, they will provide a beautiful proof of reserves that looks absolutely amazing, but that is false. So please don't take so much comfort that there is a proof of reserves. There's much more that needs to be done, and one of the things at VALR that we talk a lot about, and what we've seen, is that the people that know that something is rotten in an organization are the people in the organization. And there needs to be whistleblower programs such that people in the organization, if they sniff that something is not right, there need to be protections and financial incentives for those people to come out and say, you know what, I'm in that team. You can't see it from the outside, but I know that even though we say this to the regulators, we're doing that. And by the way, we've interviewed people from other exchanges that are coming to VALR because of this, right? So I think, don't get me wrong, there is obviously a place for it, but it can be used to bamboozle the public, to give a false sense of security where none exists.
Yeah, see, and I think both David and Stephan wanted to come in full rap battle mode to defend their
not like defending. I think you raise a very valid point, where I'd say it's not the label. It's, as we spoke about regulation, it's not the label. The label proof of reserves doesn't give you anything. I mean, and I totally agree. I even debate how it should be organized. So if you do proof of reserves, let's say every quarter or once a month, I totally agree with you. It's basically worthless. Second thing, you need to have proof of reserves and liabilities. You need to be transparent about your liabilities, because otherwise it just says there is something on the account, but whether this is sufficient to cover your liabilities, no one knows. So just a little one. We do that twice a week. I mean, we thought about doing it every day, because what does it give to you? It gives to you a time series. And if it's very awkward in the time series, you would be able to actually trace that. So if you have large outliers that doesn't somehow match with what you would expect. So, but I agree, it's just one part of the equation. It's not the full equation. It's not like do proof of reserves, proof of liabilities, even on a daily basis, and everything is great. Maybe not. I mean, I just say random number generators for insurance fund balances. You can fake all of that, so you need to have basically everything. I mean, you need to look at that. And then it depends, as you say, whether you're crypto native in terms of technology-wise, then you will use it and you can use it. If you're more like, let's say, the average retailer who looks for something else, they will never go through proof of reserves and proof of liabilities and will do that on their own. I mean, we have a quite professional user base, so we have quite a number of people doing that. And with the whistleblowers, I'm not quite sure whether whistleblower policies, like we know it's the right thing, but I totally agree. Culturally, the obligation to dissent is something that should be ingrained in a culture, and then having the ability for people to speak up.
Yeah.
I think we need to compare, we need to not forget what is the most important, which is right now we are trying to create a financial system. And as a financial system, you know, you can, same as audit. Audit are just a blueprint at an exact day of an audit company that comes to you, check, and see either the gap, either don't see them, either check the absence of gap. So it's never veritable. It's never very truthful, such as proof of reserve is a blueprint at a moment of a day. But the aim of it is to give a little bit of more trust, not to show the perfect system in real time, where the money is, where the money isn't, etc. So we are trying to bring a bit of trust here. The second element about whistleblower, I totally agree with you, on blockchain and on everything. Food, transportation, everything actually. It's not just a principle of financial system, it's a principle of life.
I think we do that with cybersecurity, right? We have offense, defense. We incentivize our guys to hack ourselves. We should do the same thing for accountability on the reserves and compliance internally. So.
Wonderful. Yeah, thanks a lot for that. So we have just a little bit over 5 minutes remaining. Maybe can we go into a little bit of the kind of closing statements, and maybe can I kind of start by you, as you said that potentially the banks are going to come to us, right? And like the large organizations are going to come to us instead of us now after, let's say, close to 10 years or over 10 years, trying to go to them. I mean, what's your perspective on kind of the building trust through that bridge? They're coming to us.
It's happening, yeah. So two main ways, at least for us. One is, so yesterday we did a workshop with BBVA, 21 Shares, and Societe Generale with our crypto banking infrastructure lead. And 2 years ago, that would have never been possible. On the same panel, talking about how we're working together. And so two ways that's going to happen. The banks will be exchanges. They will offer to their millions of customers the ability to buy and sell crypto and transfer crypto as a digital asset or as an on-ramp to move stablecoin because it's needed from one different country to another. And we're helping them do that, and then we're partnering with other companies for liquidity provision, for security, everything. And then the second one, in order for us to operate, you remember 3 years ago, our bank accounts would get shut down. So on an operational level, it was so difficult. And now we have tier 1 banks where are supporting, all of the flow, of the on-ramp, and they're the ones saying like, oh, come on, work with us, operate with us. So no more shutdowns. And I think that's a good indicator that it's positive and that things are indeed cooking on the mainstream, on the mass adoption side, depending how you want to define mass adoption. And Mika will be a right step forward, but a very big step forward, like David says. It could go from 0 to 5 overnight.
Wonderful. Things are moving forward. Farzam, please.
So yeah, things are moving forward in a big way, I think. On our cap table, we have the likes of Coinbase, and we have Pantera, but we also have the venture arms of Fidelity, one of the largest asset managers in the world. And this was a couple of years ago where these large institutions, this is before the ETFs, are trying to get stakes in the crypto space. As we've just seen with Robinhood and Bitstamp, I think there will be a lot of consolidation in this space. I don't think in the future, in fact, it doesn't make any sense for the future to have crypto and TradFi. There won't be the two. There'll be a merging of the two. And what we're seeing in South Africa, VALR is now serving most of the large financial institutions to bring about crypto products to their clientele. So look out for some big announcements coming up soon from VALR. But the reason I bring that up is that this is just the large institutions having a little bit of a taste and trying to dip their toes in. But once they understand that this is much larger, this is not just an asset class, but could be a financial system for humanity, then you're going to start seeing a big scrambling in M&A activity, is my belief, because there aren't that many prized assets in the crypto space that have done things properly, built from the ground up responsibly with all the right controls in place. And that is a rare asset at the moment. So we're going to see a lot of consolidation. And I'm very excited about the announcements we're going to be making soon, so please look out for them.
Yeah, couldn't agree more on the M&A side. Definitely, yeah, an underestimated one. Maybe Stephan?
Well, most of it has been said. What I'd like to add here, and maybe it's not controversial, but to add a little grain of salt. I think it's true the institutions and the TradFi world is coming to crypto and Web3 to proliferate this as an investment asset class. Now, not more than this. What it originally was about has sometimes been lost out of sight. Because where I see, and I agree to you in terms of consolidation for a slightly different reason, I see projects in the real crypto space coming up with Me Too business models. And what I miss is really use cases where cryptography has originally been designed for. Proof of identity. I mean, we have that with transaction recording or transfer of value, store value, that's done. But it's identity. It's the DAO thing hasn't really taken off. It doesn't work, although it's such a great idea. For me, I'm really in for that. I mean, let's just assume cooperatives. I mean, in Europe, we're in Europe, cooperatives are a known concept. Working cross-border, automated, based on blockchain technology. This is amazing. Nothing, right? I mean, even with distributed computing power, yes, of course, we have Ethereum, we have Solana, but even there, the projects are a little bit like more proof of concepts than really building something for the real world. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I guess it's the next cycle or the cycle after next when we will see this.
Thank you. David, you have 3 seconds.
Oh no, perfect. Huh? You've done it very well, Stephan. Just to make sure, we are at the forefront of the financial evolution of the system, and as you say, Stephan, there's a blockchain evolution. Bon, maybe in 5 years, we're going to be seated in the same chair, speaking at the same stage about blockchain evolution. That's what I wish for all of you. And for all of you, thank you so much to have attended our speech. Thank you.
Fantastic. And I hope that in 5 years, we'll go from a 4 out of 10 to at least a 5 to a 6 out of 10.
On the financial, yeah.
On the financial, yeah.
There's always going to be something that's like, it's not enough. We're so far from that. You know, we're talking about compute now.
Yes, always something
always
new.
something.
And there's more panels to come. So let's give a round of applause to our panelists. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for.
All right.